You know what? I am really excited to have my guest, HBK, the Heartbreak Kid. I call him Shawn, you see, because we're in the same line of business. But Shawn Michaels. Welcome, Shawn Michaels.
Thank you very much.
You know what? Gotta wait for that applause to kind of go down here. Can we just start by you just telling us a little bit about wrestling and how you got started, or even why you got started? And did you want to be a pro wrestler when you were a kid? I mean,
yes. The first time I got to stay up late when I was 12 years old, and this local wrestling promotion called Southwest Championship Wrestling out of San Antonio, Texas, came on, and it was in a little dingy, they called it the Junction.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was a small little, about a 50-seat little building, and it just mesmerized me. And I thought, my goodness, that's the neatest thing I've ever seen.
How old were you?
I was 12.
12.
And I walked into the kitchen, and I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'm gonna be a professional wrestler when I grow up. And she said, "That's nice of me."
So it wasn't football or baseball?
No, I played football my entire life, continued to play football through my senior year, but in the back of my mind, I wanted to be a wrestler. And I would do it to my friends in the hallway and on the football field. It completely took over my life.
And you went through the thin times, I'm sure, in the beginning, and humble times.
Yes. Well, when I was 19, everyone at graduation was going on to college, and my parents said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I still want to be a professional wrestler." And everyone agreed that I should have something to fall back on other than my body. And so go to school, get a degree, and then if you still want to do that, do the wrestling thing, we'll give it a shot. I went to a couple semesters at a school 45 minutes up the road, and after a pair of 1.4s, I came back and I told my dad, "I don't want to waste your money. I know I can do this."
Yeah.
And so he thought about it, and I went. I got trained, and about 3 months later, I was driving out of my parents' driveway off to Louisiana to start out as a professional wrestler at 19 years old.
Man, I remember one time passing through Pittsburgh, and I saw you with your original tag team partner, where you were with Marty.
Yep.
And I think I was with Rick Steiner. But it was the first time I had ever met you, and you were just on your way up and really making a name for yourself. And, man, did you ever do that, because you ultimately, I said in the introductions that you used your body to, as a wrestler, to change the face of wrestling. You were instrumental in really making wrestling what it is today.
Well, I appreciate it. It might be a stretch, but
I don't think so.
I appreciate it. Because I was smaller than a lot of guys, my style was sort of just doing anything. And I did it that way because I really enjoyed it. I loved going out there and performing. I still do. It's obviously taken a different perspective for me now.
Right.
But no, I really loved going out into that ring and performing for the people. My father told me once, he said, "Son, if you can make a living doing a job that you enjoy, you're better off than so many people." And I have. I have struggled, as you know.
Right.
But my solace in times of trouble was always inside that ring. I always felt comfortable and at peace inside that ring.
People cannot understand that unless you absolutely experience it. You met your wife through wrestling, didn't you?
Yeah, sort of. Yes. I found myself being, one of those people that said, I probably wouldn't date someone that had been in the industry.
Right.
And after WrestleMania 14 in 1997, I believe, I suffered at the time what I believed to be, and everyone believed to be, a career-ending back injury.
Right.
And so I was done. And I went home to then try to figure out what I was going to do. By that time, I achieved success, but everything I was as a person, as everything was as a wrestler. I had nothing. I had nothing to identify myself as. I didn't know what I would be if I wasn't a wrestler, and I didn't know who I was. And I found myself doing what many people did at that time. That's flipping in between the two wrestling shows at that time, the WWE, WWF at the time, and WCW were at a Monday Night War, and in 1998 and on down, it was the thing to do on Monday night. So I found myself doing the same thing. And one night, WCW had this little dance team called the Nitro Girls. They would just come on and dance, do a little skit before commercials. And one night, one of them had a solo dance, and I thought, oh my goodness, that's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And I was on the phone to a friend of mine who lives in Marina Del Rey, just down the road, and I was telling him that story. Well, 2 weeks later, he calls me and he said, "You'll never guess who's out here." I said, "Who?" He said, "WCW." I said, "Well, tell all my friends I said hi." He goes, "Oh, no. He said, "The Nitro Girls are here." He said, "And Whisper's there." That's what they called her at the time, was Whisper.
Right.
And I said, "Oh." And then he went on to say, "Would you like me to see it? She'll give her phone number." I said, "No, I'm not. I play this pretty cool guy on TV, but I don't have a cool bone in my body. I don't know the first thing about."
Yeah.
Especially, and she didn't watch wrestling. She didn't have any what she did for a job, and she didn't know who I was. I was like, oh my goodness, now I really don't have any material. But eventually they wore her down, and she said, "Okay, well, give him my number." And it's funny. At the time, I didn't realize, but at the time she said, "If it's God's will, it'll happen."
She said that to you?
No, she said that to them.
Wow.
And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And so I didn't call her because I didn't know what to say. So 2 weeks later, he calls me back and he says, "You didn't call her." And I said, "How do you know?" He said, "Because she, listen to this." And he's got a recording with her saying, "I suppose it's not meant to be, but I appreciate, the offer." Well, then I felt like I've got to call her to explain this to her. So I called her. We ended up talking for 2 weeks. First conversation that we had, she said, "Do you believe in Jesus?" And I was raised Catholic. And I said, "Yeah." Which is to say, I knew who the man was.
You knew who Jesus was.
I knew who he was.
Right.
And I knew that he died on the cross. That was about the extent of it.
Right,
yeah.
right.
She took that differently. And, years later into our marriage, she said, I'm going to learn to rephrase that question in the future, which is, have you accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior?
Right.
And anyway, after 2 weeks of talking, she said we should meet. We met, we dated for 2 weeks, and I asked her to marry me. And 2 weeks later, I married her.
Wow.